After we have the initial example of faithful Abraham, and then the Mosaic law instituted, we have example after example after example of the Hebrews, the people of God in the Old Testament. And their tendency was towards disobedience. And so the Lord spelled out these principles in so many different permutations so that they could not be avoided. If you want to know that spirit of avoiding obedience, it's alive today in Papism. They call themselves the Roman Catholics, which is not what they are, but that's what they call themselves. And also in every form of Protestantism, it is alive and well. This figuring out how to disobey God and then justifying it, usually from the scriptures. But here's an example from Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 11 and 12, where we learn what is happening in your life when you are faithful to tithe. Then there shall be a place which the Lord your God shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Thither shall ye bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings, and your sacrifices, your tithes, and the heave offering of your hand, and all your choice vows which ye vow unto the Lord. And ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God, ye and your sons and your daughters, and your men servants and your maid servants, and the Levite that is within your gates, forasmuch as he hath no part nor inheritance with you. The Levites were the class, the tribe of priests. They were forbidden to have secular employment, just like the canons of the church forbid Orthodox clergy to have secular employment. Which is to say, the tithe is the portion of those who manifest the truth of God to you. And when you faithfully tithe, you then generate, as it were, in your consciousness, in your heart, and also in your life physically, a place for God to dwell. And the reverse is also true. If you do not give this portion to the Lord, then you are failing to perceive God's presence as sacred in your life. He is always the source of everything. But if you don't obey this practice, you are failing to sanctify the Lord's own place in your life, and that is not pleasing to God. Now later, in the Old Testament, the prophet Nehemiah, Saint Nehemiah the prophet, whose name means the consoler of God, he built up the walls of Jerusalem after the Old Testament people of God had been in captivity and wished to return. Ezra built up the temple. He was God's helper. And Nehemiah built up the walls. He was God's consoler. Well, Nehemiah perceived a problem. So here we're reading from Nehemiah chapter 13, verses 10 to 14. In the voice of the prophet Nehemiah. And I perceived that the portions of the Levites had not been given them, for the Levites and the singers that did the work were fled everyone to his field. Then contended I with the rulers and said, why is the house of God forsaken? And I gathered them together and set them in their place. Then brought all Judah the tithe of the corn and the new wine and the oil unto the treasuries. And I made treasurers over the treasuries, Shelemiah the priest and Zadok the scribe, and of the Levites, Pedaiah, and next to them was Hanan the son of Zakur, the son of Mattaniah, for they were counted faithful, and their office was to distribute unto their brethren. Remember me, O God, concerning this, and wipe not out my good deeds that I have done for the house of my God, and for the offices thereof. So when you're supporting a holy work, the work of priesthood, the work of singing in church, the work of all these holy things, the work of teaching the true faith, the work of faithfulness, when you support this work with your tithing, you can be assured that Nehemiah's prayer to God on his own behalf will be heard by the Lord on your behalf that your good deeds will not be wiped out that you have done for the sake of the house of God. Saint Nehemiah the prophet, pray to God for us. Saint Moses the prophet, pray to God for us and teach us to be faithful to the commandments. Now, be sure that you see this as an opportunity to become intimate with God, because remember, Nehemiah is called the consoler of God, who reinstituted tithing in God-pleasing manner. Do you wish to comfort the Lord? If you do, you will yourself be comforted.